Hi everybody, Dan Bickford here. Time for another episode of Carolina Rides, our trip through things automotive across the Upstate, the Western Carolinas, and in some cases beyond. Thanks for joining us, and of course you can always reach out to us, whether you've got a good idea for an episode, somebody who's got a collection you think, or even a single car you think could make a good show, or just have any questions. You can find us on Facebook at Carolina Rides, on Instagram, Carolina Rides Official, WSPA, and on YouTube at Carolina Rides WSPA. If you're already watching us on the YouTube channel, thank you. You can also find us on the WSPA Plus streaming app, which of course is free for most smart TVs. I'd like to welcome our guest this week. It is John Budinich, President of Cars and Coffee of the Upstate. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Dan, and thanks for having me on Carolina Rides.
Let's start basically with the beginning. Give me a little bit of background about what got you interested into the whole car scene anyway.
Sure.
Just from the very beginning at a young age.
You're going to go way back then. We're talking old school today.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I got involved in the car scene more because of a friend of my father's. He used to come over and he would have he had a 63 Corvette, then he had an XKE Jag. And then I started to appreciate cars and all. And then when I was of age to get a driver's license, I could only afford a 62 Chevy Corvair, and all my friends had SS Chevelles, Camaros, and so on. But at least it gave me a sense of, hey, this is what I could strive for going forward. Went through Plymouth GTX, I did a Datsun Z car, and then I finally got into what I consider true sports cars, the Porsches. I bought a 944 in 1986. Joined the Porsche Club, got involved in the club. Still have that car today. It's got 300,000 miles on it and still running on the original drivetrain. And so I got involved in the Porsche Club, was an officer there for 6 years. Then I got into the BMW Club as well. And the issue I ran into was clubs do things with clubs because they have different regulations, insurance, and so on. So I researched Cars and Coffee in Irvine, California, the Caffeine and Octane down in Atlanta, and a couple of others in Charlotte, and decided to start a Cars and Coffee in Greenville, South Carolina, and called it the Upstate, so it wasn't exclusive to Greenville, in 2011. And I've been running it ever since. And the last 2 years, I've cut back a little in the amount of time, but we used to do it 12 months a year on the fourth Saturday every month.
You mentioned looking for something that was a little bit more all-inclusive as opposed to just the individual clubs. How much did you already know about the whole Cars and Coffee sort of organization with the other chapters and other things going on across the country before you went into that?
Actually, not much. That's why I reached out to the granddaddy. I found the contact information for the one in Irvine, California. That was one of the largest. They used to do it weekly. It was at the Ford Mazda headquarters in Irvine. Eventually, they got closed down because they built surrounding apartment complexes and condos, and the noise at 6 a.m. just got a bit much. And then I also talked to Bruce Fifke, who runs the one down in Caffeine and Octane in Atlanta, to see what works, what doesn't work, and so on. And I tried to take the best practices and eliminate some of the issues. And that's why I always have police on site, just to make sure that people behave. And 3 basic rules that we came up with were obey all traffic laws, meet new people, and have fun.
Tell me a little bit about then the early days of Cars and Coffee in the Upstate, kind of getting the whole thing off the ground, getting the word out. Was it an overnight sensation or a slow burn?
No, slow growth. In fact, first thing was finding a location to do it at. I got lucky in the fact that I found where the old Fresh Market used to be, down at North Hill Shopping Center. They had closed to move to a new location, and that building stayed empty for a while. And they'd happened to have a Starbucks and a Liquid Highway in the same parking lot. So I spoke to the GMs of both of the coffee concerns, also the general manager of the property, and they said I could use it as long as people, cleaned up afterwards and behaved. And I didn't have to worry about hiring coffee service or anything else, and I didn't have to worry about restrooms because both of the coffee shops had those. We ended up, the first 3 months, I think we averaged about 17 cars showed up. The only promotions I was doing at the time was I created a Facebook page to promote it. And the way I did that was I would take a photo of every car that showed up, post it up as an album, and then this way people could see what either they didn't, they missed, or, hey, I want to be part of that. Eventually, slow growth over time, after 3 years, I outgrew that lot. It had 200 spots. I spoke to people at Michelin. They were willing to be the host site. And we moved in September of 2013 to Michelin, and we've been there ever since. And now, if the weather's nice, we'll get 1,200 cars a month.
What led you to Michelin in the first place, other than the obvious car connection?
Well, obvious car connections, and I used to work there. And
Perfect.
I knew some of the people. I ended up going back there as well. I had worked there from 86 to 97. I left and took on a couple other jobs. I was in IT my whole career, so it was a very transferable skill. And then when I was a consultant, Michelin actually brought me back to help with their high-performance training class, and that's when we started talking about doing Cars and Coffee possibly there. The other benefit really was Scott Clark at the time was the head of Michelin North America, and he was a car guy. He came down to the event, brought an old M5 BMW, and he loved the event. And he goes, "Why aren't we doing this at Michelin? You know, we're car people." And that's one thing led to another. He said I could run the event as long as I protected Michelin's name, took care of the lot, and didn't have any negative publicity. And that's how it started at Michelin.
Talk to me a little bit about if somebody shows up to one of these events at Michelin. Tell me a little bit about the vibe. What can people expect? You know, they pull in. What's it like?
The parking and everything is first come, first serve. I look at Cars and Coffee as an automotive enthusiast gathering. It is not a show. We don't have trophies. We don't have classes. We don't segregate parking. So to me, one of the benefits is there's a gentleman, he comes out with a 1958 Porsche Speedster, and he may park next to a 17-year-old who's in, he's the fifth owner of an old Honda Accord. They get out and they start talking cars. And that's the thing. You start talking about a common interest being cars, and then you get to learn more and more about the people. The other thing is you'll see anything and everything. We've had cars out there from the 1920s all the way to modern supercars and exotics. I'll try and do a couple of features each year. We did one, my 10th anniversary at Michelin, we did exotics and supercars, and I had 110 of them in a separate area up front, the front 3 rows. We ended up probably, I think, 2,500 people showed up to that event.
What is the reaction, and what was the reaction when you started this amongst, first off, the people who were, kind of older school to begin with, and then just from people in general going, "Hey, we've got this event we can go to. This is fun."
I think, for the most part, it was very positive because of the fact that it was not a show as such. So people said they could come, they could relax, they come and go as they please. The event runs from 8 to 11 in the morning, but you could show up early. We now have people showing up at 6:30. But the thing is, you don't have to stay for the whole event. You can come and go. They like the relaxed vibe about it. They like the fact that they weren't having to make sure the cars were pristine and going for a trophy or anything like that. They didn't have to open the hoods. They could just, get ideas too for future, modifications they may want to do to their cars by looking down the rows and say, well, I like what this guy did. Maybe I can incorporate that in my car.
Now, for those who are interested, I'm also popping up in between us here, your Facebook page, actually. Right. For those who are interested, obviously, there's going to be information here. But tell me a little bit about how often these events are, and again, the general days and times of day that you do this.
Well, as I said, in the past it used to be 12 months a year, but now we're doing it 10 months of the year. I've partnered with another gentleman, Michelangelo Vivar. He does the Cars and Coffee Obey the Crave you see on the right-hand side of that logo there. He does those at Bridgeway Station. So what we'll do is we'll alternate the locations to give people, a change of pace nowadays. They are every fourth Saturday of the month. Now, there are a couple that Michelangelo had to move due to conflicts with Bridgeway Station, so they may be on the third Saturday. The calendar is posted on the Facebook page, and you will find the albums from all of the past events on that Facebook page.
Yeah, here's some of the pictures here from which event. I mean, this is not obviously from Michelin here. This
no,
is
that one I don't know.
Event.
That's probably just a picture I downloaded from one of the photographers. But we'll have about 7 or 8 photographers out there, and we've got a couple. I'll plug them. Fur Ryman and Scott Daigle. They'll post albums of 900 to 1,200 photos from a single event. And, what we tell people is if you want to make sure your car is on the Facebook page and you don't see it in one of those big albums, send me the picture. I'll post it,
Yeah, I've seen Furr's name on a lot of the social media posts on several different sites because he seems to be at a lot of those bigger events.
I think he goes to every car show in the Upstate.
So, and again, we mentioned if you want information on Cars and Coffee of the Upstate, it's all right here on.
It's all on that page. I also
page.
have an Instagram, Cars and Coffee of the Upstate, all spelled out. A young gentleman started that years ago. He asked me if he could. I said, sure, go for it, because I didn't understand Instagram at the time. Show you how long the event's been running. He is now a graduate student at Duke University, so he reached out to me and said, if you want to pay the Instagram site, I'll give you the credentials, or I'll just shut it down. So I took it over.
How much interaction and how much of a part do you play in some of those other Cars and Coffees? Because there's one in Easley.
Yes.
You mentioned what happens at Bridgeway Station. Do you have influence on that, or is that some sort of blessing? How does that work out?
Michelangelo and I, like I said, we partnered, and he actually says I'm his mentor. I'm trying to help him, guide him into getting his event to be very successful as well. The one in Easley is run by a gentleman named Brian Kraut. That originally started the Z Club, started that event. The one in Easley is unique in the fact that it has a Starbucks, but the Starbucks is located in the funeral parlor where they host the event. So that one got me a little bit. There were some others in the area, but they came and went because the thing is sometimes they grow too fast and they outgrow their site, and then the site says, you need to move on. In fact, Michelangelo's first event was in Malden at the community center, and the first event was so busy, they just said, we can't do this anymore, and that's when he was able to strike a deal with Bridgeway Station. So, again, from March through November, you will find the events. Michelangelo's doing 8 this year. I'm doing 4 at Michelin. As I said on this Facebook page, the calendar is there with all of the dates and the times, are all from 8 to 11 in the morning.
What we're going to do right now is we're going to take a short break. When we come back, John and I will talk a little bit more about where Cars and Coffee is going from here and kind of where the upstate car scene is going and some of the good things and some of the bad things that may or may not have been going on across the area. We'll be right back here on Carolina Rides. Welcome back to Carolina Rides. Once again, joining me, John Budinich from Cars and Coffee of the Upstate. And we've been talking a little bit about the background of how the organization got started, how it got to where it is today. Now let's kind of take a look at the future. First, with Cars and Coffee of the Upstate, obviously you've said you've dialed it back a little bit and somebody else has kind of taken over some of the other dates. Where do you see it going as an organization from here, not only with you or maybe passing it on to some other people along the line?
I'm trying, as I said, with Michelangelo, mentoring him with the one at Bridgeway Station, I'm trying to get more of the younger crowd involved in actually running these types of events. As you can tell, I'm getting a little long in the tooth, but also it gives me the opportunity by scaling back to 4 events at Michelin to get involved in other events. You had a gentleman on previously, Caleb Hightower from AutoWorks SC. I'm doing 2 events with him this year. It's a brand new event called Rhines and Rains International at the Tryon International Equestrian Center. We're going to have exotics on display. We're going to have an area for off-road vehicles, a Porsche Corral, and then an open area for general attendance. We also do one in the fall in September at Lake Bowen, and that'll be in its 3rd year this year, to where we have exotics on the lawn. There's hills with the off-roaders, and then a couple of parking lots for general attendance. And by getting younger people involved, it brings a different vibe to it. As I said, they need to keep the hobby going. I can see people of my generation and everything else, we're trying to move on to other things. We're trying to maybe do retirement, do more travel, and not be involved in the monthly events. And people like Michelangelo, other events that are going up, for shows and all, it's good to see that the younger clubs are running these and growing the hobby. I mean, if we don't bring the younger people in, the hobby dies, and, we don't do Carolina rides anymore.
Yeah. What would you say then to some of the, like, maybe some of your generation or older, the people who are more used to, you know, just kind of hanging out, or some of these, for example, judge shows, and now you've got somebody showing up in a Honda Accord, a Honda Civic, you know, a Lexus of some sort, where they've modified the exhaust. It's loud. They've got the big stereo. Maybe they've got some lights, and it's not quite that classic vibe that some of the older generation is used to.
Well, I would say, you know, look at it as it's an evolution of the hobby. I mean, you know, you're not going to find a lot of 69 Chevelles out there anymore because just the age of the cars, they tend to rust, they tend to get neglect. And, you know, things evolve. I mean, when we first started, you know, hot rods were the thing. And then all of a sudden on came muscle cars, then came sports cars. Well, now you're coming into, you know, the imports. They had a flash in the 80s and 90s with the underglow and everything else. Well, they're starting to make a comeback now because, you know, people are getting that retro vibe. And don't look at it as, you know, oh, that's not the way I want to see the hobby go. Look at it as, hey, look, there's something different. And, you know, the fact that they're enthusiasts and you're enthusiasts, have the conversation. Find out why they like that. Why are they doing that with a Lexus as opposed to doing it, you know, with a BMW, or as opposed to doing it with an old Chevy?
Yeah, I like to see it as a continuation. I mean, part of that, you mentioned the different car, a lot of that is because people are growing up with the Hondas and the Toyotas and that sort of thing right now. So that's what they're used to having had in the family, and maybe it's a car they liked. And also, you know, if you stop and think about it, I know when I was a kid, you know, the people who were making noise, it would be, there's an old Camaro with giant tires, big stereo, and a lot of noise. And then a lot of those same people, it's like, well, now we got this car that's making all this noise, and that's just a big racket. When it's different, but it's the same almost.
Yeah, guilty as charged. My GTX was loud. It was jacked up in the back. I mean, you know, and then I got into sports cars and learned you can go around a corner without worrying about tipping over. You know, I had a Suburban for a while there that had the audio-video equipment throughout the entire thing. But yeah, the other thing is, you know, when I started in the hobby, we used to be able to work on the engines ourselves, be able to, you know, I had a summer and winter carburetor, for example, which was ridiculous. Well, nowadays, the newer cars, you can't. I mean, everything's electronic. So you're going to do modifications in different ways. So now you're going to concentrate maybe more on the looks, or maybe you're going to take that turbo and put a bigger turbo on. And then you get into the downpipes and all this, and so it makes it louder. You know, we did the same thing with cherry bomb exhausts and, you know, big headers.
Yeah, and it's the type of thing too. Back in the day, you know, you had what you had. It might have been a hand-me-down car, and you're like, well, let me do something here that can spiff. And it's just that kind of, I guess, definition of cool has obviously changed with the generations, but everybody's still sort of doing the same thing.
You know, I go back to my first car. Like I said, my friends had Camaro SS's, Chevelles, Mustangs, and I had a Chevy Corvair. So I thought I was doing it more as a goof. I painted it metal flake blue out of spray cans, so it almost looked like alligator skin. Took the back seat out, found some cheap mags and everything else. And when I was done, you know, I thought this is the funniest thing in the world. And all of a sudden, now I fit in because I modified a car. I modified what I had with what I could afford at the time, and it was appreciated.
And that's what a lot of the hobby is all about, outside of the show cars.
Yes, because not everybody can afford a show car. Not everybody can afford. Like Dave Kindig just did an aluminum Corvette that he did and won the Riddler Award. This is a $750,000 car. Well, I'm sorry, you know, most people can't afford that, and we're going out, we're spending our $40 or $50. Here's a little trinket we can put on the car, or we save up for a couple of months, and then we can go bigger turbo or bigger tires, whatever.
How much do you wish you had that Corvair back now?
A lot. Especially when prices went crazy for gas. I mean, I was getting 29 miles a gallon, 10-gallon tank. The car would run forever. It was great in the snow because all the weight in the back. And now it's probably worth about 50 times what I paid for it. I bought it for $150. So, I mean, now they're going for $2,500 to $5,000.
Well, some of the ones I've seen at auction have been closer. Have been generally anywhere from 8 to 10, but most of those are really nice. No one's coming up there with something with the Corvair, something particularly rad.
Yeah, mine was a daily driver. Yeah. The GTX is what I wish I had back. A big block Plymouth, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned not everybody has a '69 Chevelle right now, and you're probably the third guest I've had who's mentioned that exact car because my wife has one of those.
Oh, okay, great. I didn't know that.
Yeah, she had it after high school and college, and she bought a used one, and they were really cheap at the time, and had a boyfriend at the time who wrecked it. So for years after that, always wanted one, and then saved up, and finally, boom, we got one in the garage.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk a little bit about just kind of a general where the hobby is going across the Upstate. I mean, it's not just Cars and Coffee.
No.
A lot of other events, a lot of other organizations out there as well. Where do you see? Well, how do you see things unfolding going forward, and what are some of the good things and some of the bad things about that in our area?
Like everything, there's two different directions. There's the positive and the not so positive. I won't say negative. I don't want to slam anybody, but the positives are I'm seeing a lot of different groups going out that are trying to build community. They don't have all the people that don't have expensive cars or don't work on their own cars and all that. There's groups out there like the Carolina Mopars Foothills group for specifically for Chrysler. There's Salvation. There's a gentleman trying to build a community there. They don't care what kind of car you have. On the not so positive side, let me rephrase. On the positive side, they're also doing events. They're doing charity events, which is great. They're raising, Toys for Tots. They're doing food drives. They're doing charity runs. And then on the other side, you still have that other part of the culture of takeover. Every once in a while you'll see it all over Facebook where they take over an intersection, they're doing donuts, there's hundreds of people with their cell phone cameras and all that. I'd prefer go find a place where that can be sanctioned. You can find a place that will rent out maybe a parking lot or rent out a venue where you can go do drifting and all that kind of stuff. Don't do it on the public roads. With Cars and Coffee, as I said, I have 5 officers on site. 1 patrolling each lot, and then 2 on the street that leads into Michelin and 1 at the main intersection to get there. And it's not to be, Gestapo police and all that. It's just to make sure people behave. Because a lot of the clubs have realized if somebody does something that upsets Michelin, Michelin can turn around and tell me, you're done, and then we lose the venue completely. And it's hard to find a venue that can hold 1,200 cars on a regular basis and appreciates the automotive community.
Yeah, certainly. We just had, and that was just a matter of weeks ago, we had one of those intersection takeovers in the Simpsonville area.
Yep.
And I think there are a lot of people who kind of see the car community, and especially with the younger crowd, they kind of see it through that lens, when in reality, and as you mentioned, because we had Angel in from Salvation, couple months ago now. And there are a lot of people who are actually taking things in a much more positive direction.
Exactly. And the thing is, though, you won't see the positive ones spread out on Facebook or spread out on the news or anything else. You'll see the one like the takeover in Simpsonville, because that gets the press, that gets the likes. I've heard a new term that I just learned and shows you how old I am. It's called clout. It's these people going out with the cell phone cameras and videoing that. In fact, there was an event up in Maggie Valley called Slammed Enough. It's for lowered and stanced cars. Well, they got shut down because they took over a mini mart and gas station area, and they were climbing on the pumps, they were doing burnouts and everything else, and the city just said, that's it, the show's over. It was supposed to be a 3-day show, it ended up a day and a half.
Yeah, I think there was something like that happened in Tennessee, too. I don't remember if it was Sevierville or Pigeon Forge or something like that.
I'm sorry, it was Pigeon Forge, you're right, that's the one, Sevierville. Yeah, that was Slammed Enough. And now they're looking for a new location. Again, the people who attended that event, the people who built the cars for that event, that's the type of event they want to do, but now where are they going to go? They have to find a location. And that's what happened a lot with some of the Cars and Coffees. And as I said, I'm shocked. I've lasted 15 years now doing Cars and Coffee the Upstate, and I would love to get some people involved to take over and keep it going for another 15.
You mentioned the 1,200 cars at Michelin. Do you have... I mean, is that basically capacity? Can it go more? Do you have visions for anything grander at one point?
No.
You know, especially on the way out, it's like, okay, we have one more big blowout here. We're going to knock everybody's socks off.
I'm at the size, in fact, it's actually bigger than I ever expected it to be, and that's the size I'd like to stay. I'm not looking for a bigger venue like Caffeine and Octane. They used to get 4,000 cars at Perimeter Mall, you know, but he had about 60 people working the event. And I've got 825 spots in the main lot and 240 spots in the lower lot. But the thing is, with Cars and Coffee, you get an early and a late crowd. So even if you had, say, round figures, 1,000 spots, you may get 1,500 people because you'll have some people come for the first hour and a half and others will come for the second hour and a half. And it's a way of, you know, just being relaxed, being, again, more laid back, and just come in and get ideas, meet, you know, see some old friends or make new ones.
And as you mentioned, anybody who is interested in getting involved, whether it's Cars and Coffee or any of these organizations, one more time, just tell people what to do.
Yeah, just actually message myself on Cars and Coffee, the Upstate page, or message Michelangelo on the Obey the Crave page. Those are the two biggest Cars and Coffees in the area. Or just attend the events and reach out to other people that are there. You know, you mentioned Angel. They have some of their cars have Salvation written on the windshields, you know, the top of the windshields. Talk to them, see how you can get involved in those groups. And, you know, find cars you like with people that are doing like modifications that you would like to do. Start talking to them and get involved with them.
Okay, sounds good. Time really flies when you're talking about something you like, huh? John, thanks for joining me today on Carolina Rides.
Dan, thank you very much. Again, I appreciate it, and look forward to seeing more and more on Carolina Rides.
And hope to see you at an event soon. I'm really interested.
Please do.
I'm really interested in the one at the Equestrian Center.
Good.
Because of the facility.
That's May 16th.
Okay, because of the facility and the fact that there are restaurants, you got places to eat, and that sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. So
starting at 5, our event will be from 1 to 4, and starting at 5, they have equestrian events taking place throughout the venue. So you can stay and watch the horses.
Make a day out of it.
Yeah,
that sounds
exactly.
like fun. Literally, horsepower.
Yes, exactly.
John, once again, thanks for joining me on Carolina Rides, and to everybody else, I'll see you next time. Drive safely. Take care.
Take care.